And happy Saturday to you all. I'm Tina Brock, your host for Into the Absurd here at the Idiopathic Ridiculopathy Consortium. And thank you so much for joining us if you're coming in on Zoom or Facebook Live for a conversation with Kate Brennan and Greg DeCandia. And they run Ignition Arts here in Philadelphia. And I'm sitting in front of a poster of a show that I was so delighted to be able to be a part of way back when, that we're going to talk about Angels in America. And I just want to send a big shout out to Erica Holscher and to Bob Schmidt, who are running the show today behind the scenes. They work very hard to make sure the show happens and gets in on time and takes off on time and all the things that make that happen. So thanks to them very much. Gosh, what do I want to say? So much about my experience in working on Angels in America and Raised in Captivity, Nikki Silver's play, and also The Eight by Jeff Good, directed by Greg DeCandia. And Kate Brennan was always such a shining star and light in all of these productions. And so I think best to bring Kate Brennan and Greg DeCandia to the table to talk about where they've been since then and all the many plans they have in the offing. Hello, dear folks.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Tina.
You know, as I'm talking about this and thinking back on these memories, I just get verklempt. I mean, I just had such an enormously good time, both being on stage with you, Kate, supporting your work, and Greg as a director. I just thought and think you're fabulous. So thank you for all that body of work. And we were just lamenting the daily walks past Society Hill Playhouse and how much really spirited work happened in such a fabulous place. So, wow, you're back in Philadelphia and we have Ignition Arts now. So I guess I want to find out, there's so much to talk about, but tell me, what brought you back to Philly?
What brought us back? Well, we always wanted to head back, but over the past 8 to 10 years, we had opportunities to get other degrees and get more education, and then other jobs between New York, University of North Carolina, and then we both got positions in Oklahoma at a university called Oklahoma City University, and we're working there. And so we just had a baby 19 months ago, a couple days ago, and having the baby, and then with the pandemic, we really wanted our child to know our family. And so we thought it best to just pack up and move back to where we could get some more support in the community where BCKSEET originally started to thrive. And so a few years ago, we changed the name of BCKSEET Productions to Ignition Arts to move from the backseat, where we had relegated ourselves for so many years, to be in the driver's seat for Ignition Arts. So that's the long and short of it, why we came back.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here. So Kate, I'm going to start. I know you have so many projects going on, and I want to get to Brennan check-in. I'm really fascinated with the work that you're doing to try to help artists understand just what being an artist is. I guess, well, let's start with Brennan check-in. Tell us about the work that you're doing there.
Over the course of the past decade or so, Tina, I have been creating this new kind of curriculum, this methodology that allows artists to be not only generators of their own work, but take more agency in their own well-being. Because I've seen and have felt myself just this exhaustion that comes with being an artist, with the rigorous schedule we're meant to keep, with all of the different balls we're meant to juggle. And I think that there's a better way to do it. By prioritizing wellness. So I'm a designated Linklater teacher, a certified Thai bodyworker, a certified yoga instructor, certified melt hand and foot instructor. And I combine all of these different things along with devising and generative exercises and writing. And we create using all of this wellness in Brennan Check-In. And we have brought this work to HBMG's National Winter Playwrights Retreat, to the Statera Conference for Gender Parity in the Arts, to Drexel University this past year, where we were a Mandel Professional in Residence for their program there with the production Alienate. And now we're offering 5-week workshops every other month. The next one starts up May 7th. Every Friday at 5, we meet, we gather, and we follow the 5 tenets of Brennan Check-In, which are to be curious, to start where you are, sensitize, do your best, and practice courage.
And we actually applied it to high school as well. We were at the New Mexico School of the Arts, and then we also did a program where we collaborated with Bucks County Playhouse for their program called Boy Speak. And we used that same process to create a device show that they did last April. A couple of weeks ago, last March.
So, Craig, while we're talking about that, can you point to discernible result's too strong a word, but what did you see in the process by using these methods that manifest itself in the production then?
I think what it does is it creates we're always so project-based and not process
result-based is the word that came out, right?
And this is slowing everything down. I found it very useful when we applied it to these teenage boys in Boy Speak with Bucks County Playhouse. They actually took to the meditation and the mindfulness at the beginning because they had been spending so much time online all the time and going fast and looking at this and this, and they're just barraged with so many different things that actually to stop and slow down and just breathe actually brought them into a very different space. And none of them had any yoga or any experience with that or chakras or anything like that. And just having that age-old foundation to be able to base everything off of, there's a reason why it's been around for thousands of years. And Kate has just really found a way to put these 5 in a particular order that really allows people to we start with the third eye chakra, and then we start with rooting and then building our way back up again. So opening the mind, then putting our feet on the ground, and then building the artist from the ground up with everything that they have in their own ability to be able to do so. So it's really an empowerment for the artists themselves, but also having the structure and also the support of an ensemble. And the boys, we had a talk back at the end, and it was just like, you couldn't have written a better response to what they felt and how they were able to create work without even realizing that they were creating it, and really being able to find their voice. They felt that they really were able to speak and say something that was truly their own. And I think that's the ownership that it gives the artist, I think, is the most, the beauty of it.
So do you think it's, for both of you, do you think it's a reconnection? Like, it's cellular, right? Our knowledge, our understanding, who we are lives in our cells. And when, to the degree that we become disconnected from our body and or that knowledge, I guess, is detrimental to our being our authentic, truthful selves. Do you, Kate, see, did you consciously put the 5 areas together to sort of, was that your doing?
It was. I actually was basing it on some of the knowledge of the chakras, and with the chakra work, actually starting with the third eye is kind of a backwards thing to do. A lot of times you build up from the ground up, but my experience has been, we're just so busy. We're so busy in our minds. It never stops. The racing thoughts, it's like this hamster wheel of negative thought that we get caught up on. And if we can just, as artists, as people, calm that down, I feel like it opens the door. It kind of drops the floor out, and suddenly we can go so much deeper in all of our work if we get out of our own way. So that's why I started there. And actually, this was the order came up years ago when I was attending the Statera conference for gender parity, and I saw this. It was a majorly women's conference, but it was meant to give women more opportunity in the arts and to acknowledge all of the things that we do in the arts. And it was a way of working that I hadn't I hadn't really seen before. I had this really interesting moment where somebody had a baby. I was going to say a new baby, but all babies are kind of new, right? So somebody had a baby, and I just saw them kind of passing it to people. Like the baby was just being passed around to all these people, these strangers. And I got this image in my head, like, of course you can just kind of pass the baby around, because what they've created here is a net, like a net where anyone can fall into and anyone will catch you, and so it's from that kind of that lateral kind of open dialogue, open forum for ideas, that I started to think in this way, that maybe if we start to open up different parts of ourselves, that we'll come more into alignment. And this goes back to what you were saying, Tina, about this dissociation. We are dissociated from ourselves. We're dissociated from our voices. We're dissociated from our bodies. And man, now that we're remote so much and we're on Zoom, you think it was bad before, but you can't even see if I'm wearing pants right now, So I am wearing pants, but like you can't.
I feel your pants. I do.
But we're so dissociated from everything that aligns us into being one being, not to mention being dissociated from each other. So the more we can bring our bodies, our breath, our minds into alignment, it's like we don't actually have to create anything. The creation is all there already, and we are the filter for it.
When you said open the door, that was such a great visual image of just like, it's all there. You just have to let it. So then I guess, Greg, I'm interested to know if in your work as a director on, Angels or any of the shows, like, were you noticing in your cast, or do you notice now a way in which the work is different when people use techniques or work in this way? I guess the question is, do you think it's something that is useful along the road in a show?
I think it's something that, from its inception as Backseat, and something that Kate and I have been working on. Now it's been 20 years that we've been doing this, is that always the stories that we've been drawn to are stories that are important to individuals, to people that come forward and ask those things. And we were just always trying to find a way to streamline the process to make it as earnest and honest as possible. And what we found out actually when we were in Philly, and we were doing 4, 5, 6 shows a year. I mean, we were really doing a lot of work, and doing some original work in that. And what we were finding is we were finding a lot more value and a lot more reward from the original works than we were from doing, some of the more traditional works that we were doing. It was almost like we were trying to keep up with the Walnut Street Theater, and that's just impossible for a company of our size. And then we also wanted to be at the forefront of the next element of theater, the next stage of theater, and finding those voices and amplifying those voices. And I really delved into devising when I was working at Boys Latin of Philadelphia. We did a lot of verbatim theater work. And then I went to grad school and did my show Silhouettes of Service. North Carolina is the most populous veteran state in the country. So while I was there, what better time to do a show about military service than having all those people at our fingertips. So with all of those original works, with all of those ideas, Kate was getting all of these certifications. I was working with the devising things, and they've just kind of merged together. And because of the pandemic, everything was put under a microscope, and we had to make some absolute decisions of how we were going to move forward. And we realized we had all of these tools, and then we actually were able to streamline it and actually have our most productive year in all of the 20 in the past year.
Yeah, actually, when the pandemic hit, we were meant to develop Illuminate, which is the third musical of this YA trilogy, the Infinity Trilogy, that David Lee White and I have been developing for about 4 years from its inception at McCarter Theater Center. And we moved it online, and we were able to work across 16 states and 4 different time zones. And we implemented Brennan Check-In as the template for the rehearsal process. And as a result, not only did we develop a new piece, but we developed a new form from it. What we ended up creating is something we're calling myriadrama, which is a collection of scenes and songs that can be assembled in any order, in any medium. It's based on the old idea of children's myriorama cards. They used to come in a deck of cards. Greg was going to run off and find them. They would come in a deck of cards, and you could deal them, and the picture would always make a landscape in any order. In any other, our myriorama cards are upstairs.
Like a very, yeah.
So
like a triptych that always works.
Yes, exactly. So imagine then a show that is a deck, and all of your scenes and songs are in there, and you as the director or as the ensemble, you can deal the cards out however you want and rearrange them. That's what Illuminate became when we were workshopping.
It's literally devising a show in a box.
Right.
And you have all the materials there. We're working with a high school up in Boston, and their idea to do it is that the audience, before they come in, will pick the order of the show.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But then the next show we developed was one of Greg's plays called Animals. And we did it with a collaboration between visual artists, between graphic artists who drew the comic book that is written in the show, and actors. And we did the same thing. We implemented Brennan check-in throughout the course of the rehearsal process. And it became this whole kind of live art performance play that we were able to stream.
Yeah, the reading was a bunch of panels that you'd see from the comic book that the lead character was creating in the show. And then we also had one actor who was actually live painting and charcoaling as the show was going on. So it was like having Bob Ross emotionally interpret the show.
Right.
I think one thing is we maybe had too much visuals going on to actually follow the story completely, but the process and what I got as a playwright from the end of that was amazing. And the young artist that is creating the comic book that will go along with the show, I mean, we basically created all of those characters from scratch. And what was beautiful is we thought that eventually we would have one artist create the comic book, but now the 5 artists that we have in, we want to create the comic book all together. And they layered their things together just so beautifully. And they come from such different styles. We thought it would be too contrasting, but it actually allows for any production to actually buy into a particular style, because there's 5 different styles in the actual comic book.
Right. But getting back to your original question, Tina, as it went off, you were talking about what do we see any results from applying this kind of work?
How do you see the actors transform? Is it more self-reporting on their part? I mean, you can see it obviously when you see them opening up, and that door, as you say, opening up, but it's got to be equally rewarding to see the freedom that you are allowing them to take hold of in their own instrument.
Yeah, I think 2 main things happen, Tina. One is that they want to work with us again. They want to work on more projects, which I think is always a sign that this is fruitful. And then 2, we end up discovering things in the process that we didn't realize were possibilities before. And the piece that we were developing becomes something that wasn't even an option before we started working together.
And another thing I would add to that is the confidence of the casts. A lot of these times, even with Boys Speak or when we did Clean Slate the last time, I mean, there were some passes of the show that we haven't even seen in a while, and they're performing it in front of a live audience. And some of the trouble areas are never trouble when they're going live. Like as a director, I'm sitting there like, oh no, here's that part that they haven't gone over.
Here's the bridge.
But because they just feel, because they feel so grounded and they feel so connected to each other and the material, they just go. And again, it's that methodology of the net. It's like a trust fall. And I think that's the beauty of the work, is that it creates this mesh that allows you to feel secure in the unknown.
Ensemble. It makes everyone an equal participant in the development of the piece.
Right.
And also like an illustration of how the truth, whatever that truth is, but I mean, just being present and totally engaged in your body is the story. It's a story that nobody can question, right? So even if the bridge like starts to fall apart, it's still, you know, whatever, like you said, Greg, it gives you the confidence to be able to get over whatever the bridge is that you're, and that becomes the story.
We've
that
done a lot of this work with young people too, which they sometimes they feel paralyzed, and I think that this really makes them feel it gives them the confidence that they so desperately need in this, you know, constant ever-changing world that we're living in.
So Kate, do you think that it's probably a combination? I was just reading, do you know Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Holds the Score? It's about how the body, it's about trauma and how the body is stored, how trauma is an emotional experience that's stored in the body, and that language may not be sufficient at times to be able to unlock that cellular memory. And that, you know, he's advocating for, you know, don't get rid of the PE, don't get rid of the phys ed, don't get rid of the art, don't get rid of theater, don't get rid of all those things, because those are the things that for kids and adults that really need to be able to feel confident being housed in their own bodies will come to understand themselves better. I wonder if as a cast, when you mentioned, let me go back and ask the question better, and that is that you said we would come upon things that are just utterly surprising to us and would go in different directions that we imagined. Can you give us an example of something, or is it just more organic than that?
No, absolutely. With our creation of Illuminate, making it into a myriadrama, you know, we thought, oh, this is going to be the third musical in a trilogy, but then we ended up creating this new form. We're now working with artists to create the actual cards, and each card will have a door or a window on one side, and then we'll have the scene or the song on the other side. So you have your whole script there, and you can lay it out in any order. But what we also discovered was something that we called optologues and optalays. And an optologue is a visual speech. So what we were kind of bothered by when everything moved to Zoom was seeing these Zoom readings where everyone's just kind of a talking head, and you felt really it just felt,
it's like watching the beginning of the Brady Bunch as a reading.
right, but the whole reading. So we started to play around with collaging different things across the screen as the text was going on. So you might see someone drawing, you might see, you know, somebody's eye, or you might see someone doing an activity. And what an optologue is a visual speech. It is meant to illuminate the text in some way. And an optalay is a visual song. So it would be a similar thing, but with the music as a background. So it's a way of storytelling that doesn't rely solely on one actor. It relies on your whole ensemble.
And this is in the virtual medium. This is being done. This is what you were doing this year, right?
Yeah, this is what we were doing, but there's no reason it couldn't be in person too. Like why not? You could do the piece in a traditional way with the actor speaking and everything, or we could hear in some way the text and then see some kind of representation of something, or puppetry. We used a lot of puppetry actually, and like shadow puppetry.
We called them objecteers because they were using like a glass perhaps to do something.
Fun.
And you know.
Right, or you would only see someone's hand as they were fiddling with something, or
So how did, as you were working to create these works, and you mentioned, Kate, that you use, you know, the 5 aspects, or, you know, what you've been working on in your Brennan check-in work, how did you measure, or I guess, or realize that what you know, the work that you would be doing in person was actually working virtually for people? Did they just self-report, or could you actually see it? I do think there's an intensity and an intimacy about this medium that does really reflect pretty profoundly people's feelings a lot of times. So how did you work with that virtually?
I think the best way to last year, we also began a new program called the 4 Seasons Residency, where we partnered up with what organizations?
With Tofty Lake Center in Minnesota, with HBMG's National Winter Playwrights Retreat in Colorado, with Idaho's Seven Devils New Play Foundry, and with National New Play Network and Ignition Arts. We all partnered up, and
when we write a press release, that's our first page, is just saying who's involved. But we select an artist for an entire year, and they spend a week residency with each of these organizations, all culminating with the showcase at NNPN at the end of their time with us. And last year was our inaugural year, and we had Jessica Huang was our playwright in residence for that year. And we had her for 5 days. The first residency went uninterrupted. She was able to go.
In Colorado, it was in person because it was pre-pandemic. But then by the time she was meant to come to us, the pandemic had hit. So we decided, and this is really where it all started, that we realized this was a possibility for us, is that we hosted her virtually, and we tailored 5 days of Brennan check-in solely around her work.
5 different works each day.
Yeah. And so every day we focused on a different piece she was developing. She had a workshop with me in the morning. In the afternoon, we sent her what we're calling a forethought at 4 p.m. with a little gift, a bunch of information. One day,
interactive email.
Yeah. One day we provided a recording of one of her scenes. One day we wrote her a song to one of her lyrics. One day we
had her Sabian symbols read.
Right. We had symbols read for her. And then in the evening, Greg would interview her at night and to ask her how the day was going and so this was your direct feedback. Yeah. Absolutely. And we would see how it went for her that day. And then by the end of the week, he was able to edit a podcast together of her experience. And that was probably when we knew that this could possibly be something.
Yes. Yeah, just the breakthroughs that she confided in me at the end of every night. And we're actually making a podcast that people will be able to hear about this exact thing coming out soon.
Can you share some of, or just 1 or 2 bits of like illumination from her experience?
A lot of the pieces, she didn't know where necessarily they were. She didn't know where she was at the process, how much more work she had to do or how much little work she had to do. So it was really a calibration that she was able to do with each piece every day. She accused us of spying on her a few times, of saying like, how did you know? She was with her husband one day that came in and they were doing a piece on Octavia Butler, and we sent them a thing about peacocks, and then like they had seen a peacock that day. I mean, there was just a lot of symbolism that was crossing over. That was pretty amazing, that she kept on reporting back each day. But every day she seemed blocked initially, and then at the end of the day she was able to find a pathway. She was able to find her way through something that she let us know.
Yeah.
So almost invisible but not invisible connections are being made by the work, both when you're in the room together and just what the residual of what you put out there and what's in the air and how that comes back. Is there anything, I'm imagining being in Oklahoma and creating work, and yeah, I'm from the Midwest, so I have not Oklahoma but a little bit of an idea, Indiana, which is sort of out there. Is there something different about creating work in Oklahoma?
Yes.
there's more sky. There's so much more sky in Oklahoma, and it as being from the East Coast, I think we take for granted how many trees there are and how much
topography.
Yes, like hills. It is very flat, and there's nothing but sky sometimes. So there is this sense that Mother Nature is very much right there, and you are held accountable to her.
Yeah, it's pretty severe weather as well. So they have a tendency. While we were there, we had we were fortunate enough to have a residency with Lyric Theater of Oklahoma, which is, I would say, to give a Philly comparison, it would be like the Walnut Street Theater of Oklahoma. And Michael Barron, the artistic director there for the last 5 years, has made a new works initiative. So every year they have done a single new work. And 2 years ago, they brought us in to do a 6-week reading series of all new works. So it was really great being a development company in a place that was starved for new work. You know, there's only so many times you can see A Midsummer Night's Dream in literally Oklahoma. And so for Michael to have that forethought to make sure that his organization was really making that a priority, and then giving us the opportunity to continue that work was really beneficial. And the audiences really took to it, and they really were excited by it. And we actually had some playwrights who came down during the reading series. And that's when we started doing Zoom stuff. Every writer that couldn't be there, we actually had them in the audience on Zoom, and they were able to watch and be part of the talkback, which I thought was really great as well. And this was 2019.
Yeah, and then before that, we were in residence with another organization there called Oklahoma Contemporary, which just opened a beautiful new building, which we sadly never got to see.
Yeah.
But Jeremiah from Oklahoma Contemporary was our host for a year before that, and we developed Alienate there, which ended up premiering with Drexel in 2019. And so, though there wasn't a ton of new work there was a place where we could do it. And so that's what's really was exciting about developing new work there, is that we were forging our own path in a way, and showing people the possibilities of where theater can go.
And OKC has a strong pride in itself. So they're always looking to be the next big thing. So that was a really cool thing to be a part of as well.
And what do you miss about it, aside from the sky and just that I mean, not just that, but that freedom, that ability to be forging a new path?
I think our partnerships is something that I'll miss the most, is having that the accessibility to such great institutions that while we were there, and how welcoming they were. While we were there, I think was, that Southern hospitality is true. And we felt a lot of it. So I think that we'll miss. And Oklahoma was a great culinary arts scene. I mean, the food there is actually fantastic. And that was one of the most surprising things when we got there, is what a great culinary scene there. I mean, Kate's gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, and all that. We have all those allergies, and you could eat like a king there, which is pretty amazing in, cattle country.
It's true. Yeah, they have great food in Oklahoma. I wouldn't have believed it before I went there, but it's very good.
Yeah.
So they're aware of that, though, right? You learned this from your associations when you got there. It's not like, I mean, they believe they have a good food city.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Yeah. I mean, and right before the pandemic struck, we were actually in all different districts, in all different theaters. We were at Oklahoma Shakespeare. We were at the Contemporary. We were at Lyric Theater. We were at Literati Press. So we were very nomadic in our final year there, and then we couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, we released a book with a local press there called.
Yeah, it's right there. You have the prop. There it is.
It's called Elevated Thoughts. 100 Shadormas from 9,000 feet.
Oh, wow.
And I collaborated on it with a student who did all of the artwork.
Corinne Prudenti, who is actually the graphic novel, the one who's heading the graphic novel for us, one of our artistic affiliates.
So that, I mean, when you ask Tina, what do you miss about there? It's accessibility. It's really nice to, when things are smaller, there is more access, and people are more willing to say, oh yeah, we do have this space, come in and work on it,
And that's as you say, Greg, the Southern hospitality part is something that's very, very palpable. And it translates. Jesse wants to know, he says the Halloween parade in Oklahoma City is out of sight. So I don't know if you guys ever saw the Halloween parade, but
they decorate like crazy for Halloween. Like Halloween is like the biggest thing. there's this one house that was down the street from us, and every year they would have a new theme. One time they made the house into a pirate ship with all skeletons and like people diving off.
Another time it was a circus with people flying through skeletons flying through the air,
out of a cannonball,
walkers. Yeah. And then everyone has a graveyard in their front yard for Halloween, like with names on the tombstones that are all comedic.
You know, maybe it was that way in Indiana as well. Yeah. It was probably one of the biggest, you know, and because there's so much space there, people would, you know, I mean, it literally took hours. You'd start, and because the houses are so far apart, you know, it took forever to get anywhere, but people would put candles in sand in paper bags and line the streets, and it was a big affair. So big that's, and very theatrical. So I guess I want to just talk a little bit about working together, you guys, as partners in life, as partners in Ignition Arts. Kate, what's the thing that you feel like is your biggest contribution to your relationship, artistically or otherwise?
I'm glad you asked her first.
I'm giving you time to think about it.
Well, you know, Tina, I think I keep us grounded. I think, okay, look, if we're going to be opposite sides of the same coin, it's like Greg is floating away in a hot air balloon and I am holding onto the basket and just pulling all my weight down to say, okay, what's practical to do, which is sort of funny coming from me. I mean, with the things that I create, but
with, you know, Greg Harper,
right. I know Greg is often the one with these like big, enormous. I mean, even the Path Project, which we'll talk about in a little bit. In the beginning, it felt like an enormous idea, and I'm the one that says, okay, let's keep it a little bit simpler for us. Like, keep it simple, stupid, you know, like, let's make it manageable. So I think in a way, my practicality is one of my, I know that's not terribly exciting, but it gets things done.
But the interesting thing about that too is I'm the one who puts the budgets together while you go off and dream about all these different things that you can do, and I have to pull her back fiscally. So I think conceptually she grounds me, and fiscally I ground her artistically.
Interesting. So you get crazy with the budget, Kate. Like, in what ways? Like costume?
She doesn't think of a budget. Budget is something that is not in her mind.
Okay.
And then I have to sit down and be like, we need to put numbers down so we can raise the money to be able to do this next thing.
That's great, though. What a wonderful seesaw, right? What a wonderful seesaw to be on, because it's generally the person who has to have the budget strings, you know, the person's like, no, we just, you know, the Debbie Downer of all the great ideas is like, no. You know, that tends to be across the board. So I think it's really interesting that you have these wonderfully, which is not surprising at all, like very outer space ideas, Greg. And then Kate's like, no, we have to kind of make it manageable, because that's more of a practical thing, you know? Yeah. Did you guys know each other before Angels?
We met at the Philadelphia Barrymore Awards.
We met at the Barrymore Awards.
Oh, come on. When?
We did.
Now, TJ Soxo will say it was a blind date, but he basically promised both of us tickets, and we didn't have anyone else to bring. So we said,
we both wanted to go stag, and we just wanted one ticket. So we each got a ticket. And I think I had the ticket. You had the tickets. I had the tickets, and I was waiting for you on the steps of the Academy of Music, and you trudged across the broad with your
the black leather trench coat.
No, it was green, like the green leather trench coat.
No, it was black leather trench coat.
You no longer have that coat.
You have the green one, or was it?
I still have the green one.
Okay. And he came across, and I was like, "Who's this guy with this long hair who thinks he's so?" You know?
You didn't know him. You didn't know him. You just knew you were going with each other.
I gave him a ticket, and we just laughed throughout the course of the night. We had a great time.
And I said, when will I see you again? She said, for auditions for Angels in America.
I know. And then what happened was, I don't know if you remember the auditions. So scandalous, right? They remember the auditions, but they went pretty late. Like, they kept on going and going, and they kept on calling Harper's in, and they just kept on having us read and read and read. And what we found out later,
well, I knew. Well, later,
Kate was cast.
I was behind the table, and everyone was like, why won't you go with Kate? And isn't Kate the best one? And I go, yes. And then they were like, well, why do we keep on seeing Harper's? And I was like, because I want to date her.
He didn't want to cast me.
Oh, you didn't want to cast me.
Greg. I was hoping someone else.
All those other actresses.
Someone else. as Harper so that I could date this
Oh,
incredible
I
creature.
see. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little okay. Still,
But we were really good. I'll say this: we were really
you
good.
guys were great. There was
Nobody knew that we were even
I
dating
didn't-
because we did that second show at the Adrian.
At the
we had
Adrian,
a producer
yeah.
that came in, and I remember Jerry Perna was very upset. I gave everyone a rose, and I gave Kate a dozen roses, and he goes, "What the heck is Kate getting?" Oh, and then that's when everyone realized.
Oh, because I don't think I just thought you were cute together, but I didn't know, I guess, if you were together. And there was never, like, I wouldn't have known, it just wasn't,
And
it must have
now,
been hard.
and obviously it was just a showmance because it's been
15 years.
it might be longer.
16 years.
2016, 17 years. It can't be that long because I'm only 30. So,
Of course. And I'm only 35.
Right.
So Greg, was that hard at that particular point then, directing Kate in the show, or it just is a separate thing entirely, or vice versa? Kate, was
is
it
the
hard
easiest
playing
person
Harper?
to direct in the world. I mean, I was just able to sit there and watch. I mean, what she brings to the table is every director's dream, is to just sit there and let the people play. If anything, I would just have to get her to slow down and bring the other people, get the other people to, I remember Stedman Croft was her Mr. Lies. And it's just like, she was just dancing circles around Mr. Lies. So we had to slow her down a little bit and said, that is not the drug that you're on. I think that was the only calibration that we had to do, is that she thought she was a little bit more sped up. But
so Kate, do you feel like when you look back at doing Harper now, and in light of, and I'm going to guess that meditation and the kinds of body work that you do now has probably, I'm going to guess, always been part of your repertoire on some level, but are you a much different actress, do you think, because of all this work that you've done? And when you look back at Harper, if you were to play her again today, obviously, it's a different time and place, but do you think you'd be greatly affected by that work that you've done?
Yes. For everyone casting Harper right now, I would do a much better Harper than I did. No,
we did cast her twice.
Yeah, I
mean, we did the full part in 5 years later.
Yeah. Right. I did it in rep then, but yeah, absolutely, Tina. I think particularly the Linklater voice work has helped me to be much more available as an actor and an artist. And then all of the other wellness work has given me the stamina and the agility to be able to do that kind of, not just the physically taxing work that it takes to do all of those shows and those long, Angels in America, 2 parts is a long run of a day.
7.5 hours.
But also the emotional work that comes along with that can really take a toll on you. So I find that I'm much more willing, much more, and this comes with age too, I imagine, but I'm much more available and I'm much more connected and willing to be there for my scene partners than I ever was before.
And I was so enamored by her acting that I actually went on stage and played prior. So
in the second, when you guys did the whole show.
Yeah, I wanted to have a gay director that actually lived through the AIDS epidemic. So we had Andrew Borthwick Leslie actually direct the piece, and had James Imes in it. We had a really great cast.
Catherine Palfinier, Cabby Rush. Yeah.
And where did you do that second production? Remind me again. It was
we did it in the Red Room. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, we did it down there and did both parts in rep. The Barrymores would not vote on it as one whole thing though, which was weird. They did 2 shows separately. But there was nothing more powerful than those Saturdays when we would do part 1 in the afternoon and then part 2 at night.
And people would go for dinner.
Yeah, they'd go for dinner in between. We had dinner plans at LaForno's restaurant, Vesuvio's, that they could go to, little prefix meals, and then they would come back. And what was really interesting, and it was general seating as it always was in the Red Room, but the people would come back and sit in their same seats. And they would talk to the people next to them and be like, oh, how was your dinner and this and that. And it was really just a magical experience. And it actually got me to meet Tony Kushner. There was this, the Philadelphia.
So the Wilma, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Wilma was one of the people there, but I was there with like, the people from the Wilma, the Arden and everything, and just little old me sitting there with Tony Kushner for brunch. I was invited because I was one of the only people who had directed him in the city at that time. So that was pretty amazing.
And I think that's the kind of stuff we want to do moving forward, is this, that create an experience. And I think that is what people are going to long for even more. It's so easy to stream things right now. You can sit at home. Movies are even going directly to video. You can watch them from the comfort of your couch. So what is going to bring people back to the theater, but actually having a communal experience, sharing in something that is going to incite dialogue, that is going to forge new community pathways, that is going to get you to debate and to think differently and to live together again.
And one of the things that we're trying to do with that is our Path project, which before we run out of time.
No, definitely.
Yeah. With the Path project, with a year of captivity, literally being in quarantine and everything, we wanted to have a project that would bring people outside. And so we also wanted to take advantage of our extensive podcasting work. We have a lot of podcasts, and anyone that's watching right now, anything that we've said or anything is basically ignitionarts.org/illuminate/animals/path/BCI. All that stuff is right there on our website to follow all of this up.
Yeah, so for the Path, pieces about transporting humanity, we're commissioning artists, playwrights, singer-songwriters, composers, people that write poems or do spoken word, to create a 10-minute piece, a proposal for a 10-minute piece that can be listened to whilst walking along a path. And we're going to choose 10 of them and then record them and produce them over the course of the summer and release the Path podcast in the fall.
And the 10 people that we select get $100 stipend for their project and
a fully produced project by the end of it. And we're accepting submissions up until the end of the month.
So Friday.
So the Ignition Arts is on, and Bob just posted the specific link to the Path project. How did the idea come about? Were you doing a lot of walking? Were you? Yeah, I'm
right against the Wissahickon path back here in Forbidden Path up in Roxborough, and I take my son every day. Once he gets up in the morning, he gets in. I have a nice, Kate got me it for Christmas, a lovely little what do they call it? Hiking pack? I don't know. It's basically, he's like a pharaoh who sits behind me, and I bring him out through the woods. And our only rule is that it can't be below freezing. So we've been out there in snow. We've been out there, all since June. We've been doing this, going out there. And I just had this idea, since I talked to him on the path and tell him stories, I was like, oh, wouldn't this be great if someone, and so many people I bump into on the path are already wearing headphones anyway. So why not have something that actually speaks to the road that you're on? You know what I mean? Rather than that's, again, separating you from your experience and listening to, I don't know, some sort of music that gets you excited to run. But what if something that is inspiring you to move on this path?
And in tandem with that, we have heard from so many artists that we work with that they're feeling really stagnant. They're feeling stuck, they're feeling low energy. And what will help with stagnation but getting moving? It gets your body going, but your breath going too, and everything in alignment. And so if we get them outside on these paths, maybe nature can inspire them, provide them with the new breath, with a fresh breath, to create pieces for the future so that they in turn can inspire others.
And another little development nugget that you get, anyone who's selected, we also will be doing a Brennan check-in workshop with the entire ensemble that will be putting this together so that we can help them along the path to finishing their project.
You said this, I think, and I missed it. When is it going up again? Or you guys, when is the deadline? I mean, the deadline's this Friday, but when are you hoping to
Yeah, April 30th, we're accepting submissions until, and then we're going to announce sometime in the next 6 weeks after that who we choose. And then we'll be recording them, we'll probably have to cast them and record them throughout the course of the summer. And then we're going to launch in September.
Yeah, but around Labor Day, we think.
Beautiful idea. It's seeing, I mean, that's the one thing over this course of this last year that's really sort of served as a constant was the walk. And, that walk always took, for me, that path past, it was just like a magnet, past the Society Hill Playhouse, down past what was Mum Puppet Theater, up past the Walnut. There's so many places in Center City, as you mentioned before, the Brick, what used to be the Brick Playhouse, so many, places that provided so much interesting magic along the way. I guess I would ask, I'll start with you, Kate, and then ask you, Greg, if you have to give a piece of advice to your students, what would it be?
What comes to mind, I guess what I wish I knew is that no one needs to give you permission to create. You can just do it. And then something is out into the world and no one can deny that you have created something and it exists. And we get really hooked up on perception and what people think and what an expectation is, but we all have to forge our own paths. And it is in doing that sense of discovery, that sense of curiosity, that there really is no right and wrong. There just is. So that's what I wish I had known.
I would say it matters what you do, not where you do it.
Mm-hmm. I remember it was De Niro, or I think it was De Niro. I don't remember. I'm going to say De Niro, but saying many years ago, and I think he used Oklahoma as the place, or maybe it was Idaho. But the point was, you could be doing theater for 50 people, for 5 people, for 500 people. And essentially, the act of creating whatever you're creating is fundamentally going to be the same. And that's the thing that will fuel you for, as you say, Kate, the next project, the next creative endeavor, the next brick that you lay down there. Do you think, Kate, that we, as actors or artists, often, is there something about the system, or is it that we just feel like we just don't have the license to do that very directive that you would give your students, which is like, no, it's you're the instrument, you're the thing, you're everything. So just get out there and make it happen. That we somehow wait for other people to tell us it's okay, or we wait to get cast, or we wait to get hired.
We do. And meanwhile, we audition and we wait to get cast, and then if we don't get it, then we feel bad about ourselves and we beat ourselves up until we can do it again. So why not write your own piece? Why not direct your own show? Why not?
And it's a community. It seems like sometimes the community can be that of comparison, which I don't think helps anything, because everyone has their own unique path. And if you're, looking at, oh, look at all the roles they got or the opportunities that they're doing, you're not paying attention to what you have, and you're not giving your full focus to what's in front of you. So, and that's really hard to do. I mean, I'm guilty of it, of looking at the haves and the have-nots, and wanting some more of the haves sometimes. But
yeah, and Tina, I think we have an opportunity right now to reevaluate what it is we want the arts to be moving forward. What kind of pieces do we want? What stories do we want to tell? What pieces do we want to produce? What kind of experiences do we want to have in the theater? And now more than ever, we have the opportunity. We've had some time to think about all of that. So why not then use these lessons we've learned to create the type of work that we want moving forward, whether that's, in any form, in any format, and be the type of artists that we want to be.
Biden's Build Back Better, right? Mm-hmm. Let's do it. Let's do it with our industries, and hopefully everyone will do it with theirs. There was, when everything's under the microscope, you see all the flaws, and now is the time to address them. And hopefully everyone will.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you are both back and bringing this wonderful energy. And I love, in the background, your pup is back there and he keeps poking his head up in the Dream It, Live It pillow. Every time, I think when you talked about animals, he perked up and then he'd go down and then he'd come back up again. So
Josephine Baker, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. Just like, hey. Shout out to Greg from Jeffrey Hendel, met while working at
yes.
Society Hill Playhouse. So
Jeff.
I could keep talking to you guys for a long time, but I would love to, I will be anxious to see your work. And everybody check out Ignition Arts and submit for what's coming up. And I look forward to seeing all the energy that you guys are going to bring to Philadelphia.
Great. Oh, thanks so much, Tina. Thanks for having us.
It was just a pleasure to take a little bit of a trip down memory lane and as well look at like what's on the horizon. So,
well, and thank you for being such a showcase of all the talent that Philly has.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, be well.
All right.
And thanks to you, everybody, for being here and joining us today. And next week, we're going to be talking with James Jackson. And James is the executive producer of Light Thief Productions here in Philadelphia. And he also has a podcast called Coffee Talk with James Jackson. So we're going to talk to James about growing up at the heels or at the feet, not at the heels, at the feet of a family of our artists and how he's had his hands in many different areas as a producer, as a director, as a facilitator, as a leading voice in helping this community and the stories that need to be told on Philadelphia stages. So we'll talk with James next week. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week ahead. I hope you're vaccinated and get a spring in your step and doing all kinds of fun things with family and friends. And we'll be back here next week, making more magic with you in the audience. Thanks so much. Have a great week.